They took her at the edge of the moorland. Not violently. That was the part she hadn't prepared for, the complete absence of violence. 12 Andact soldiers, and not one of them raised a hand against her. They simply surrounded her on 3 sides, with the practiced efficiency of men who had been told exactly what she was and exactly what she could do, and had been instructed accordingly. Do not touch the mark. Do not let her speak in the old language. Do not let her press her hands against the earth. Davin's instructions. She recognized his thinking in them the way you recognize a person's handwriting, precise, comprehensive, leaving nothing to chance. They separated her from Tom in the confusion of the horses. She was east, he was west, and by the time she understood what was happening, there were 6 horses between them and a soldier with his hand on her arm that was not the mark arm, but was enough. She looked back once. Tom was fighting, controlled, efficient, 2 soldiers already on the ground, but there were too many, and they were not trying to hurt him, only to hold him, which was in some ways harder to fight than violence. Their eyes met across the distance, and the horses, and the cold Samhain dawn. She said nothing. She didn't need to. He already knew what she needed him to know. She could see it in his face in the fraction of a second before they pulled her onto a horse and pointed it north. She faced forward. She started calculating. The garrison was 4 hours north at the pace they were riding. She spent the first hour mapping everything she knew about Davin, his thinking, his planning, his specific brand of intelligence that was vast and precise and had one flaw she had identified in the cellar and was now turning over carefully. He planned for outcomes, not for people. He had modeled what the marked ones would do. He had not modeled what specific marked ones, these specific marked ones with their specific histories and specific qualities, would do when the model met the reality. The shard in the cellar, he had not planned for her to destroy it. He had planned for a witch who would be afraid, who would calculate survival, who would not risk a direct confrontation. He had planned for the witch she had been at 9 years old, watching her grandmother burn and learning to hide. He had not planned for who she was now. She spent the second hour deciding what to do about the second shard. She could not destroy it the way she had destroyed the first, not without her hands free, not without the earth under her feet, not with the specific conditions that had made it possible in the cellar. She was on a horse with her wrists bound in iron, not iron that knew her, not old earth iron with obligations, new iron, garrison iron, made without ceremony. She needed time. She needed proximity to the stones. She needed Davin to believe until the last possible moment that everything was proceeding according to his model. She was very good at letting people believe what they wanted to believe. She had been doing it since she was 9 years old. The garrison appeared on the horizon at the 3rd hour. Davin was waiting at the gate. He looked at her the way he looked at everything, as though she were a result that had arrived on schedule. She looked back at him with the expression she had worn in the interrogation room, completely controlled, giving nothing, hiding everything. "Good morning," she said. His small, precise smile. He told her, walking her through the garrison courtyard toward the east, toward the cellar, toward the roots and the restored stone, that he had arranged everything, that the other marked one would arrive, that marked ones always arrived. It was the nature of the binding. The pole between the 2 marks was not a metaphor, but a physical force that increased with distance and became, at sufficient distance, impossible to resist. He had simply created sufficient distance. She said nothing. She was listening for hoofbolts. The cellar had changed. The roots were still there, the ancient oak still pressing through every wall, still glowing amber green, still carrying the frequency of the restored stone at its center. But Davin had been busy in the hours since the garrison forest. He had placed the inverted shard at the 4 compass points of the room, not the shard itself, copies of it, smaller fragments she hadn't known existed, each one wrong in its own specific way, each one emanating the cold gray-black energy she had felt from the original. 4 points, a circle, the specific geometry of containment. She understood immediately what it meant. The bond energy, when released, would not travel outward to the veil as it was supposed to. It would hit the 4 shard points and redirect inward toward the center of the circle, toward Davin standing at its edge with his inverted original shard at his chest as the receiver. He had built a net, and she was inside it. He told her with the academic courtesy that she had come to understand was his version of kindness, explaining everything, always, because he respected intelligence and considered ignorance a form of disrespect, that the bond needed to be made before Samhain ended at dawn, that she knew this, that the other marked one was coming. The pull between the marks was already operating. He could feel the frequency of it changing as the distance decreased. He would arrive within the hour. All that was required was that when he arrived, the bond was made here, in this room, inside the circle. The veil would hold. He wanted to be clear about that. He was not a destructive man. Chaos served no one. The veil would hold. The binding would be complete. The marked ones would have what they came for. He would simply also have what he came for. She looked at the 4 shard points around the room, at the roots between them, at the restored stone at the center of the root system, glowing steady and warm, and entirely unaware that it was about to be used as a weapon against everything it had been restored to serve. She pressed the sole of her foot against the cellar floor. The iron bindings were on her wrists, not her feet, and felt the earth beneath the stone, beneath the roots. Still there, still old, still remembering its obligations. She closed her eyes for one breath, and she waited for the sound of one person arriving at a garrison with 12 soldiers and 4 shard points, and a man with 3 years of preparation between them and what needed to happen. "Come on," she said, very quietly, to no one in the room, to the mark on her wrist, which had been pointing north since they separated on the moorland, like a compass that had found its direction and was not interested in pointing anywhere else. "Come on."
They held me for 40 minutes. 6 soldiers. Good ones. I had trained 3 of them myself. They knew exactly how I moved, which meant I had to move differently, which took longer than it should have. I did not think about whether I would get free. That question had a known answer, and spending time on known answers is waste. I thought about the shard points. Davin would have planned for her to be delivered intact. He would have planned for me to follow. The pull between the marks was not something he could prevent, only redirect. He would have planned for the bond to happen in the garrison, inside whatever he had built there, with him positioned to take what the bond released. He would not have planned for what I was going to do when I got there, because what I was going to do had no strategic logic. It had no calculated outcome. It was not the action of the man I had been for 10 years, or the officer I had trained myself to be, or the version of myself that the Iron Duct had spent a decade constructing. It was considerably simpler than any of that. I was going to walk into that garrison and find her and deal with everything between me and that outcome as it presented itself. That was the entire plan. I got free at the 40-minute mark. The soldier who had Davin's written instructions in his saddlebag was the last one standing. I took the instructions from him, not because I needed to read them, I already knew what they said, but because I needed him to know that I had read them. Bring the woman. The man is no longer relevant. I looked at those words for a long time. Then I folded the paper precisely the way Darwin would have folded it, and I put it in my coat, and I started walking north. The garrison was 4 hours away. I covered it in 2.
They held me for 40 minutes. The garrison had 12 soldiers on active duty and 4 at the gate. I had the advantage of having designed its security myself. I knew every blind spot, every patrol rotation, every weakness in the eastern wall that I'd noted 3 years ago and filed under things to address when there was time, and had never addressed because there was never time, and also because some part of me, I understood now, had been keeping that information for exactly this use without knowing that this use existed yet. I was over the east wall in 4 minutes. The cellar door was open. Not broken, open. She had done something to the chain, some version of what she had done the first time. The iron remembering whatever it was that iron remembered when she asked it to. Even contained, even with her wrists bound, she had found a way. I had known since the ridge above the river that she was the most capable person I had ever stood next to. I had not known until I stood at that open cellar door the specific quality of what it felt like to be grateful that she existed. I went down the stairs. The cellar was amber and gold, the roots still glowing, the restored stone humming at the center of everything. 4 points of cold gray black at the compass positions. Devon at the north edge of the circle with his original shard at his chest, his back to me, watching her, and her, wrists bound, standing in the center of the root system, exactly where I had found her in this same room in a different life, looking at Devon with the expression I had first seen in the interrogation room, completely controlled, giving nothing, hiding everything, except, and this was new, this had not been in the interrogation room. The very corner of her mouth moved when she saw me appear at the stairs. Not a smile, the fraction before a smile, controlled before it could become one. She had known I was coming. Of course she had. Devon turned at the sound of my boots on the stairs, and for the first time in 5 days, I saw something in his face that had not been there before. Not fear, the expression of a man whose model has just been revised by a variable he had specifically calculated against. He had calculated that I would not reach the garrison before dawn. He had been wrong by approximately 2 hours. He raised the shard. I crossed the cellar in 4 steps and hit it out of his hand before the cold gray energy had finished gathering in it. The shard hit the stone floor and cracked, not destroyed, cracked. The energy leaking out sideways, wrong, harmless in its wrongness. Devon looked at me. I looked at him. He said, in the precise academic voice that I had heard give orders and deliver verdicts and explain the destruction of hundreds of sacred sites with equal detachment, that it didn't matter, that I had arrived inside the circle, that the bond made here would still feed the shard points even with the original cracked, that he had planned for this too. I picked up the cracked shard from the floor. I looked at it for a moment. Then I looked at her. She was already looking at me. The wrist bindings on the floor at her feet, her hands free, the mark on her wrist warm, gold in the amber cellar light. She had been buying time. She had bought exactly enough.
The shard points. Give it to me.
I gave it to her. She pressed the cracked shard against the nearest root, her marked wrist and the cracked shard simultaneously, the gold and the wrong gray meeting at the same point. The 4 shard points around the room went dark, one by one, like candles going out in a wind that moves in only one direction. The net was gone. Devon made a sound I had not heard from him before. Not words, not calculation, just the sound a person makes when 3 years of precise and patient work becomes nothing in the span of 4 seconds. He walked to the stairs and up them and out of the cellar without another word. I let him go, because he was no longer the most important thing in the room.
They held me for 40 minutes. The cellar was quiet. The roots glowed amber green. The stone hummed. The dawn light, Samhain's last dawn, was beginning to come through the ventilation opening near the ceiling, thin and pale, and arriving whether we were ready for it or not.
She was standing 3 feet away from me in the center of the root system, with her hands free and the mark warm on her wrist and the expression on her face that I had been memorizing without deciding to memorize it since the interrogation room. I had 2 things to say. The first was tactical. Davan was gone but not finished. The cracked shard still existed. The garrison still had soldiers. We had perhaps 20 minutes before the next problem presented itself. I said the second thing first. I need you to know something. Not because the binding requires it, not because the Morrigan arranged it, not because the marks on our wrists have been pointing at each other since before either of us understood what that meant. I looked at her, quietly. I would have come regardless. If there were no binding, if there were no veil, if there were no Morrigan, and no standing stones, and no river, and no oak, and no Samhain, and no obligation of any kind in any direction, I would have come, because it was you, because it has been you since the interrogation room when you looked at the candle instead of at me and said something so true it rearranged something I didn't know could be rearranged. Because I stood outside your window for 7 years in my dreams, and the only thing I regret about that is that I waited 7 years to knock. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she crossed the 3 feet between us and took my marked hand in both of hers and said, very quietly, in the oldest form of the language, the one that existed before words were shortened, something I will not translate here. Because some things belong only to the people who said them. The roots blazed, the stone sang, the bond was made, not dramatically, not with fire or thunder or the specific theatrics that stories about magic always reach for. Quietly, completely, the way the most permanent things happen, without announcement, without performance, simply becoming true. The veil, I felt it through the mark, through her hands, through the stone beneath the roots, sealed, finally, permanently, in the way the river's voice had described and the Morrigan had designed, and Davan had spent 3 years trying to redirect and had failed to redirect because he had not understood the one thing that made it work. It had to be real. It was real. We stood in the amber cellar with the dawn coming through the ventilation opening and her hands around mine and the bond between us as present and unignorable as breathing. And then, from above us, the sound of the garrison coming fully awake, boots on stone, voices, orders. And from outside, from the direction of the forest, something else. Not soldiers. The specific silence that preceded the forceful moire, but larger than before, much larger. I looked at her.
Quietly, the bond energy. When it released, they felt it, all of them. Every Fomori on this side of the veil felt the binding complete.
And
the persons will have understood what it means. The path home, there may be a way to open it temporarily through the restored binding. A door out, not just a door in.
And the forces? She looked at the ventilation opening where the dawn was arriving, cold and certain and final.
The forces felt the same energy the persons felt, but they didn't understand it the same way.
How did they understand it?
As an invitation.
End of episode 6. Next, the last day, all the Fomoire at once, Davan with whatever the cracked shard still contains, and the question that has been underneath everything since the river said the word sacrifice and then went quietly. What does a permanent bond between 2 marked ones actually mean for the lives they were living before they found each other? The answer is in episode 7.